Most have heard the story of Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game in the National Basketball Association. However, it is probably a relatively safe assumption that not quite as many people know about another 100-point game that took place on February 13th, 1954, in the NCAA. This is the story of that game, and the main character just so happens to be from Corbin. Curt Selvy of Corbin had played on the House of David basketball team that toured Europe in 1954 as competition for the Harlem Globetrotters. A few years later, Curt blazed the trail at Corbin High School for his brothers. Along came Frank Selvy, a 6-foot-tall player who broke an arm roller skating as a sophomore and did not play again until the second season of his junior year. In the first game back, he scored 17 points. That 1948-49 Corbin Redhounds team finished the year with a record of 27-3, winning the 13th region tournament, but then falling in the first round of the Sweet 16 to Owensboro, a team that featured none other than Cliff Hagan. That tournament boasted 3 future college All-Americans in Hagan, Frank Ramsey of Madisonville, and Selvy. One interesting side note is that one of Selvy's teammates, while known for his future football coaching prowess, though an outstanding basketball player, was Roy Kidd of Eastern Kentucky University fame. In 1950, Coach Harry Taylor's Redhounds again won district and regional championships and were headed back to the state tournament held in the Louisville Armory. They handily defeated Dawson Springs in a first-round matchup 70-50, bested Paducah Tillman 69-53 in a quarterfinal game, but ran into Lafayette in the semifinal game, losing 75-65. Making the All-Sweet 16 tournament team were Selvy and another teammate, Bob Barton. This state tournament also featured 4 future Hall of Fame coaches: Delmas Gish of Central City, Letcher Norton of Clark County, and Ralph Carlisle of Lafayette, and of course Taylor of Corbin. Following the final season at Corbin for Selvy, he played in the East-West All-Star Game, held that year in Pikeville, where he was named MVP. Selvy and others drove to Greenville, South Carolina after his senior season, where the other teammates who played football at Corbin tried out for a scholarship with Furman University. There, Selvy was introduced to an assistant basketball coach. His tryout paid off with a scholarship offer, which he accepted. He later led the freshman team in scoring. As a sophomore at Furman, he stepped up his game a bit further, averaging 24.6 points per game. As a junior, his team went 21-6 and had broken the 100-point total 9 times. Frank Selvy? He only led the country in scoring, averaging 29.5 points per game. One night as a junior, he scored 63 points against Mercer. He was chosen as an All-American. Frank had also become a sensation at Furman academically. In addition to his basketball prowess, he was president of his senior class and a member of Who's Who in colleges and universities in America. He was now 6 feet 4 inches tall. His senior season started with a 31-point game against North Carolina State, followed by 40 versus Duke the next night, with both games being on the road. His hot streaks continued throughout the month of December with games of 43 versus Virginia Tech, 45 against Ole Miss, and 50 against Cincinnati on New Year's Eve. January was much the same. Selvy dropped 48 points on South Carolina, 45 and 43 in both games versus the Citadel. On February 11th, 1954, Selvy scored 51 points against Georgia Tech and looked forward to 2 nights later to a game against Newberry College, who usually played a slower style. That night, February 13th, was also Frank Selvy Appreciation Night, and his parents and family were brought to town along with other Corbin residents. This was his parents' first opportunity to watch their son play college basketball. Coach Lyles Alley planned the Frank Selvy night to be about Selvy more than his Furman teammates. The ball was to go to Selvy nearly all the time, especially in the second half. Back then, college games were played in 10-minute quarters, and this was the first college game ever broadcast live on television in South Carolina. Expectations were high, and Selvy did not disappoint. The man guarding Selvy that night, Bobby Bailey, fouled out just 2 minutes and 43 seconds into the contest. At halftime, Selvy had 37 of his team's 77 points. Starting the second half for Furman were 4 subs and Frank Selvy. According to The Boys from Corbin, a book written by Gary P. West, the only instructions given by Coach Alley were to, quote, feed Frank, end quote. By the end of the third quarter, Selvy had 63 points and his team led 109-66. But Selvy was merely warming up. With 8 minutes remaining in the game, Selvy had scored 74 points. He then hit 11 consecutive field goals, giving him 98 points in the game. Newberry College had the basketball with just seconds remaining. Coach Alley screamed for someone to foul, and someone did. Newberry missed the free throw, and Furman grabbed the rebound. The ball came to Selvy near midcourt, where he was guarded by 3 players. He spun and shot the ball. The horn sounded just as it went through the net. That made it 12 shots in a row that found the bottom of the net for Selvy. But most importantly, it completed his 100-point game, the most points ever scored in NCAA Division I basketball in a single game. Final score, 149-95. Again, as was the case in his junior season, he was chosen All-American and led the country in scoring with an unheard of 41.7 points per game average. He was also the first collegian ever to total over 1,000 points in a season. The college All-Stars traveled periodically as opponents of the Harlem Globetrotters, so Frank Selvy had something in common with his older brother Curt. He was the number 1 NBA draft choice that year by the Baltimore Bullets, who filed bankruptcy just 2 weeks into the season. The team's players were redrafted, and Selvy led the league in scoring most of his rookie campaign. His career in the pros was hurt by being drafted into service for 3 years. He did come back and eventually made the All-Star team twice and played on a championship team with St. Louis. Some have said that Selvy was hotter than a firecracker on the 4th of July. That description seems to fit. Oh, and by the way, his record of scoring 100 points in a game still stands today.